Dr. Paul, you've been an advocate for sound money. Why is it that bills that come before Congress calling for sound money just never seem to get any support?
It's because there's a lot of people who benefit from having unsound money. And so it's the motivation to keep that system going because that's how the special interests depend on it and benefit from it. And it's broad, it's huge on a number of people. So as long as they can keep that funny money system going, they don't have to earn their money or earn their wealth. It's provided by government of appropriations that you can run up debt, and deficits don't matter. And then they monetize it. And then you have a Federal Reserve that just, prints the money as they need it. And they have to cheat and steal because they're devaluing the money, and they have to debase the currency. And that is an advantage to everybody who has their hands out. The welfare state, I talk about both all the time, because if anybody complains about, we have too much welfare or we're fighting too many wars, you got to get rid of the Fed because that's how it's financed. It's not financed through taxation, direct taxation. It's through the tax of inflation. And it's worse than it's ever been. And I've followed this very, very closely for a long time, especially since the Bretton Woods broke down in 1971. But there's been nothing like this, even in history, I don't believe, where they take interest rates down to zero, spend endlessly. Nobody can even count the number of trillions of dollars that have been produced in this last year, both by appropriations as well as from the Federal Reserve. So it's a system that really bows to a lot of people get the benefit. Not only is it the welfareist, but there's the corporate welfareist, and there's the banking system benefits, and there's also this international organization, and it's a worldwide program of trying to maintain a dollar standard, because it's a tremendous benefit to us, but the people who take it, it's a benefit to them too, because we sort of take care of them one way or the other, and that's how the process continues. But the way I see it, it's all going to come to end because it's not a sound system. It's not sound money. So the lack of a sound system and a sound economic and political system is a consequence, I think, very much in the ability of the Federal Reserve and the people to accept a system of unsound money and not even concerned about defining what sound money is all about.
What do you think about the money printing going on and the stimulus going on?
I look at it and say, I don't know, thinking that this is going to continue because it's going to end badly and is so excessive. And the stimulus is, it all comes from the idea that creating money creates wealth. If the Fed's down or Congress is down there and they send everybody $1,400, oh no, that's not enough. Somebody wants it. Well, maybe it ought to be just $900. Oh no, we want $3,000, and so it goes on and on. What are we going to do with the student loans? Just reverse it, wipe it off the books, and they do this, and they never really think about what the significance is. But it's absolutely totally out of control. The founders knew that this was a dangerous thing to happen. That's why they wrote in the Constitution, after their experience with the continental money, is that governments, our government, was supposed to only be able to mint gold and silver as money and define the unit of account. But that didn't last too long, and now it's just a matter of serving the special interest. But everybody thinks they're getting a benefit, and on the short run, many do. But on the long run, a lot of people suffer. In some countries, everybody suffers except the handful of politicians who can, escape the system. In a place like Venezuela or where runaway inflation has occurred, but that should be the biggest concern. But people know, everybody say we need just more money. They don't say we need more value to the dollar. We just need more money. They don't want to worry about that because they don't realize if a dollar's worth a dime, probably value in the dollar, but they haven't grasped that because of our educational system. Well, I've read a lot about that, and a lot of things are said about Kennedy, and he was challenging the Fed and different things. And quite frankly, I've never been convinced of all those stories. I sort of have a suspicion that he wasn't too much into that. He had advisors that had their plans and they were doing things. And I think he knew there were people behind the scenes that he had to satisfy. But somebody told one story, true or not, I have no idea. But he was walking into a major business meeting and he leaned over to his staff. He says, "Tell me again, how does the Fed create money?" or something like that. That he really didn't keep up on all that. But of course, all presidents, eventually all politicians, I shouldn't say all, a lot of politicians see that as a restraint on power. And that's the reason they always end up ruining the value of the currency. And that's why they hate anybody who's, wants power, or anybody who believes in a libertarian society. They want sound money. They can't be created by the politician because it restrains power. And if you restrain power, then you restrain the attack on liberty. But most people haven't thought that through. They don't know it's a liberty issue. It's a issue. How am I going to pay my rent this month? How come the food prices are too high? How are we going to fight the wars that we have to fight? And they go on, and they don't look at the consequences, because the one thing that has happened in a relatively free society, which we've had, and a relatively stable dollar compared to many others, it's so productive. We had enough freedom, and we're still benefiting by tremendous productivity. And that, of course, keeps nominal prices down. So they don't see this as a monetary issue, because the greatness of free market, or a relatively free market, is that it compensates for the mistakes of government spending. And the problem is it's addictive.
Before we continue, help us by smashing that YouTube like button and subscribe now to this channel. This shows the algorithm that you value the information, and it helps us spread this message. Sharing is caring. Please like and subscribe now. Thank you. And now let's continue.
Because you never say, well, yeah, you're right about that, and that's why we should only do it for a year or so, then quit. It never happens that way. It continues and it expands. It's a dependency. It's like treating drug or alcohol addiction. You can't wean somebody off. They have to make a decision. So you can't just say, well, let's just wind it down. We're going to cut spending. Politically, it's not going to be done. So that's why I tell people when I say, well, what do we need to do to get enough votes to do A, B, C, and control the spending? No, the political powers are so strong that even if you had a few more votes there, it's never seriously entertained, and it's very, very bipartisan. If it's not like one party is for sound money and the other isn't, or one party's for war and the other one isn't, or one party is for welfare and the other one isn't. They're all for all that. And so they're very, very quiet, about the structure of the Federal Reserve. I don't see, in the great debates, the debates for the president when they're running, they don't really talk about it. I did my best to get people interested in it and talking about it, but they don't really talk about it. And the media will not talk about it. They don't ask about it because they're all engaged in it. They're all part of that conspiracy to print money and pass it out to their favorite friends. So even though they throw the crumbs to the people and you raise welfare benefits, and, well, things aren't doing well, they're not keeping up, what we'll do is just pass a law. We'll make sure everybody gets paid $15 an hour, and that'll take care of that problem. See, they don't deal with the problem. All they do is, interfere even more. And that's why I expect, and a lot of people expect, this thing is going to get a lot worse until it becomes non-functional, and that means a dollar crisis.
How do you see it being played out, this dollar crisis?
Well, it doesn't always happen the same way, but it's because you don't know when people get tired of it and do something about it. But basically, it's a continuation of the decrease in the standard of living of everybody. But we already see that. That's the number one problem in this country. The standard of living is going down, and it doesn't go down evenly. Wealth doesn't go up evenly. Some people get wealthier faster, during the inflation and the growth period. And when it starts unwinding, some people suffer a lot more. When the people argue the poor are getting poorer and the rich get richer, that is true because of the system, because the very wealthy in the banking industry and the people who run the foreign policy and the Federal Reserve. It is designed to take care of them. So when the crisis, it is always predictable. And the ones I think of right away is, the housing crisis and the NASDAQ bubble and dot-com bubble. That when that happens, they say, we got to bail them out, just like we did in these last, we did it in the Great Recession at the beginning of this century, and we've done it here in this last year or so, is we just print more money, and they believe that printing money has wealth. It's a fallacy. And as long as it's keep printing, and then more and more people are going to get poorer, and most of the time it ends up in violence. And that's why I say the biggest structural social problem we face today is the imbalance of wealth distribution. So the socialists argue we're equal distribution, and they'll distribute it more fairly than capitalism does. But that, of course, is just a bunch of story, because that's not what the problem is. But if they want to really help the middle class, if they really want to help the poor and rein in the wealthy, they have to do that by having a free market, because the more freedom you have, the larger the middle class is. In our country, we did have the largest middle class in the history of mankind, and it was very, very wealthy, and we're still benefiting from it, but it is cutting into it. And that's why the conflict is getting much greater. And even though when you see the violence and the conflicts going on, it's always some other excuse, unfairness, racial problems, and all this kind of stuff. And yet at the same time, the maldistribution of wealth is a natural consequence of a fake monetary system, which passes a lot of money out, but usually the rich get it first and they pass it out and divvy it up, and some of it dribbles down. So when the far left argues that the poor are not benefiting, they capitalize on saying that's what free markets do. That's what sound money is. That's what the gold standard would do. That's what they said, during the Depression. So they use that as an excuse. So to me, it's only the most significant thing is the educational system. And I think when people invest in metals, it's educational as well as financial, because they have to know, why things are done. And if they believe that just spending more money and printing more money works, they're going to continue until it's irreversible. And right now, of course, I think we're getting very close. But the debt and the malinvestment has to be fixed. You have to liquidate it. You have to liquidate debt, and you have to get rid of the bad debt, the bad investment. And that is painful if you let it happen. If the politicians would do what they did in 1921, let it go, and there's sharp depression and prices go down, and then just get out of the way, it would be over. But that's not what happened. Or everybody is locked in on interventionism and planning and special interest and loss of conviction that freedom works. And they have to believe that it is our moral responsibility to take care of everybody and to police the world. And if we didn't do it and governments weren't there to do it, things would be much worse. And of course, but it's true.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members, where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active, and see you on the other side.